2 more 200s, 27 and then 26. Stuff like that. Really nothing saying too hard, but I think most of the time we do it in pretty short rest. And I think, believe it or not, over the years, there has been a lot of people coming and stay. Some train with us for a couple of years, some for the year or for the season. As easy as these workouts look like, these are all real workouts. These are all real weak. As easy as it looks, I've not seen one person that stayed with him for more than 2 months for training. And these including some of our best American athletes, including one of the best German, including some of the really actually best Kenyans over the years. So again, Kip's ability to really train at a very consistently pretty high level, that's pretty amazing. Although if you just look at workouts, nothing really too complicated. Anyway, what else? We do indoor competitions, which I think we'll cover just a little bit. And then after indoors, typically toward the end of late February, around February 20th. Yes?
How far did he go on that Sunday after Melrose? Because that's a pretty typical week, I would assume. But I missed it down at the bottom. Did he go a 10-mile run? Because you were saying you were maintaining your 10-milers during that.
50 minutes in Central Park, when they ran about.
That was on Saturday.
But see, the Monday before that, he ran 65 minutes. 65 probably is closer to 12 miles for him of his pace. Because, I don't think he ever runs 10 miles over 60 minutes. It's always under. So, anyway, but this is kind of the key, which which will lead to, and I think this is especially now thinking back, every year he gets a spring break. That spring break is at least 8 days. Many times it's, there has been a couple of times it's actually 2 weeks, where he goes back to like his October routine. He trains nothing. He just doesn't train. So he rests. And I think that's pretty important. Again, once you have an indoor week over there and you come back and get a break, it really helps, I think. Anyway, I'm going to say that a little bit. And then after that, we get a spring preparation. That's a little bit longer preparation. I typically say that, I'll need at least 8 weeks and preferably, 9 to 10 weeks. Which, early years he's run like Mount Sac and stuff like that. In the last 4 or 5 years, he has not done any of those races. So 8 to 10 weeks, just training, and that's the part. And this is like 4th year now. He would typically go up to Flagstaff for about 5 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks, just to go there and train there for 5 weeks, and then come back down to Tucson. Again, mostly those are the races, and sometimes some years can last till end of May. Sometimes we don't really start racing until end of May. Yes, John.
How often do you do your hill work, like throughout the week? Once, twice?
Well, no. Actually, I think on the average is a little less than once a week. So you probably do 3 times every 2 weeks, 2 times every 3 weeks or something like that. But then again, some of those are very, another one that's really good that he's done is like we'll do 9 times 500. That's something that we've done. We have a pretty long hill, then he would start from the bottom, go up, really run hard. It's like all his interval type of workout. Run hard, up 500, turn around, jog back down 250. So I would have all measured out. 250, and then run another 500 up, and jog back down another 250, and then run another 500 up. And then after 3, that's a set, I'll be there to jog a little bit, jump in the car, drive all the way down to the bottom, and do 3 of those and do 3 sets. That's 9 of those. Very, very hard stuff. Anyway, that type of thing, so we do quite a bit, and then, he does his long repeats. I think Coach Vejo mentioned earlier, those mile repeats, 1,000-meter repeats, and even at that time, we still do them either on the dirt road or on the grass. Kip, if you see how little his leg is, right here, how small that is, I think, over the years we've been very, very careful, almost never running on the pavement. Maybe it helped, I don't know if that's really the case. But, long repeats, tempo runs, stuff like that. What am I doing? How come this thing gets stuck? Oh, my computer frees up. Gosh. Why did we do that? Okay. Okay, well, and then we get to outdoor competition. Typically starts late May, mid to late May, and then that'll carry him all the way through September. It's just, there is definitely a lot of training mixed in it, but during that time, he would always have some races, and sometimes, for 2 or 3 weeks, actually hardly ever 3. Sometimes 2 weeks he won't have a race, and then we'll get some good training in, and then he would just basically constantly racing. He has been, I don't know, I would advocate that for everyone to do, but at least for him, ever since he turned pro, he's had Australian as an agent, and every summer, in late May, when he goes to Europe, he stays there until September. So he basically lives in Europe for about 4 months. And I think that has helped. If we're ever going to have athletes like that, I think that traveling back and forth is really pretty hard. And living in a hotel is very hard. For him to have a call place home in Europe has really helped him. So I would encourage people to do something like that. It's been, he actually right now, a couple of years ago, he actually bought a flat, or whatever, apartment, condo in Germany. So, he has his real place, he owns a place over there now. But anyway, he goes to Europe, competing all those races, and do intervals, and still do long runs, still do tempo runs. And one thing I want to mention here, and you probably see this example here, this is during the time, actually this is about 2007, he did it about that again. If you see that Friday, that's 6K tempo run, that's only about 4 miles. He ran 6K in 16:45, but you know what? His first 5K was 13:45. He's done that a couple of times. And this is in the forest, on the gravel road, with a little bit of help. And then those are measured, and then those are pretty accurate distances. And let's just tell you how hard he runs in some of those things. Those are type of workouts in the summer. If there is a 1 week, a little bit more than a week of break of races, that's the kind of stuff you would do. Again, this is really example. You know, if you run 60 minutes, you know, I feel, this is my personal opinion, if you're a miler, you go out and run 10 miles a little bit long, or a little bit longer than 10 miles, that's kind of long enough. You know, you really don't need to do 13, 14, 15 miles. And in fact, at least Kip has been. You know, maybe that got to change in the future years, but it has been. Once he gets up to 14 miles, he freaks out. He can run a very good 12, but 14, man, he struggles so hard, and then he'll come back and whine and complain, 14 and 14. So, you know, he probably does that only 2 or 3 times a year. You know, that kind of distance. But most of the time, 10 to 12, he does very good quality, very consistent. So anyway, but I feel that's enough. You know, if you can run good quality 10, 11 miles, that's good enough for at least for 1500 meter running. So I mean, if you see that, that's basically what you would do on a weekly basis, pretty much something like that. You know, you see there is at least 2 days built in there that are extremely easy, almost rest days. You know, just go out and jog 15 minutes and do some stretch and then you're done. Or 25 minutes or something like that. Okay. Next one is a little bit of a comparison now, because we're talking about 2007 and 2008. 2007 was a great year. And in 2008, basically we were saying, you know what, 2007 worked out great. The last 3 or 4 years worked out great. You know, if it is not broken, no need to fix it. So we did it. If you can see, this is the indoor races. 2008 and the dates, you can see remarkably identical almost. You know, we ran 4 races, we won all 4 of them. Different distances, 15 mile, 1,000, 3,000. By the way, that 732 is the indoor record, American record, and actually that's his PB. The outdoors is never done any faster than 732. So he ran 732 indoors for 3,000 meters. But you know, even 2008, it got really close to it. If you see those times. Well, there is something I'm going to lead into this. I want you to kind of see this. And then, you know, everything aimed right around February 20th as we, you know, just sit there. And then he gets his break and then start training. And then here we see a little bit difference between the 2 years. In 2007, his first race was in New York. He just, you know, a couple of weeks after he came back from Flagstaff. But that's the time when he started actually having some stomach problems. If you remember 2007 trials, the World Championship trials was the time he really was struggling. He had some stomach problems. New York lost to Alan. You know, I mean, Alan was just so impressive in that race. Prefontaine lost to, I think, Daniel Komen from Kenya. And then U.S. Championships, 1,500 meters, managed to get 3rd. And, you know, the 5,000 meter, if you remember that race, 200 meters to go, he was probably about 30 meters, 35 meters behind Matt Tiggenkamp. And then with about 150 to go, he just says, well, gosh, maybe I want to get him. And he started really sprinting and they got him and barely won. But if you see this, in 2008, we had to go to Stanford to run the 5K. Why? Because it didn't have Olympic A standing. So we had to go there around a 13:20. And the only race that would make sense is to go to Stanford to do that. But you see the result of that is he basically started his outdoor competition about a month early. which I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But otherwise, if you look at the rest of the races are all about the same. If you remember 2007 on July 6th, the racing in Paris. Man, that was about the worst race I've ever seen him run. His confidence was bad, his stomach was really bad, and then things started turning around in Sheffield. Even that was not really that great. But anyway, if you would go into August and September, his first real turnaround in 2007 was in London. After Sheffield, we had to cancel the meet in Monaco, as we did again this year, actually. But then after that, Stockholm was a good 1,000 meter. At that time, that 1,000 meter was his PB. And then, he goes into World Championships, really confidence, sky high. And, the rest of you all know, winning 2 World Championship events. And then after that, he was pretty spent. He was pretty exhausted. Ran a good, reasonably good race in Zurich for the 3K. And then when you get to Berlin, he said, Coach, I'm finished. So he finished that year. But then 2008 is a little bit different story. Olympic Games was such a disappointment. And, which I'm going to go into that a little bit afterwards. So, but after the games, he just says, I can't end here. You got to do something. So, goes to Gateshead and run the 1,000 meter and get a PB. And then ran in reality 1,500 meters is 3:32. That's actually a pretty impressive race. I actually wasn't there, but I was told the weather was not that great, and there was no one running. The rabbit, was really bad. He really wanted to get under 3:30. Didn't do that, but still runs 3:32. Pretty much, the latter part of the race all by himself. That was a pretty impressive race. And then went to the World Athletics Final in Stuttgart. Don't know what happened in the 15. He said he was tired, but 3,000 he won. Again, it's a slow kick, sit and kick race. And then went to New York for the first time ever, running a road race. Did a mile, lost to Nick Willis, and Nick sat on him and out-leaned him at the end. So that was his year. Now, I have a few minutes, right? This is hopefully is going to be like the key of what I want to do today. This is the last slide. Reflections. Now I look back and carefully, some of us think when I did it, or when we did it, we really didn't realize. Obviously this year was the first year that he actually ran Olympic trials, U.S. Olympic trials, which is quite different from anywhere else. I have my opinions about that. But anyway, spring break, the so-called spring break, this year he took just about 4 days. He did not quite get, I don't know, it's Olympic year. He feels like that's his year. Things were going really well indoors. Felt good. And, knowing that he had to start racing a little bit earlier this year, so went right into training in the spring. I wonder that has something to do with it. With how, again, as far as we're concerned, Olympic Games, he just did terribly. The spring training was shorter by about a month. It goes back to, you start in end of February, early March, and then, but you had to race early May, go to that Stanford, run that 5K to get Olympic A standard. I wonder if that has something to do with it. And then the 2008 trials were a lot longer and more races. Now, this is what I want to say. The U.S. trials, I mean, obviously Oregon did a great job, it was a great meet. At least for someone like Kip, who was in a kind of situation, earlier year, we genuinely did not make a decision to double in the Olympic Games until probably about April, March or April, somewhere around there. At that point, the argument was, well, why not? Because the schedule was about the same as World Championships, and you get done with 1,500 meters, and then you worry about 5. So we had an opportunity to just completely focus on 15, and then not worry about 5. At least that was a thought, But of course, in order to run in the Olympic Games, you got to go to the Olympic trials. You got to run those races. And frankly, at that time, we really didn't know the ramification. And I think that Olympic trials did not help him. The reasons being, I don't think that many races was really much a factor. I think those races, running 3:40s or 13:40s for 5K, it's really no big deal. It's not like it's so fast. I don't think those races are hard, okay? But I'll tell you what's hard. Well, it goes back, the time between the trials and the big meet, in this case, Olympic Games, in 2007 was almost 9 weeks, okay? And in 2008 was a little less than 6 weeks. So we're 20 days, almost 3 weeks short. Frankly, we did not realize what kind of impact that would have. Now I think back, we probably should pay a little bit more attention to that. And the trials itself, in my opinion, for someone who goes to double, I don't know if Tyson Gay would say the same thing. Obviously we do have some, I think there's 4 or 5 athletes on the U.S. team that did a double. Shanae did the double, and I think Kara Belcher did the double, and then, a few sprinters. But anyway, it's just too long. The format of Olympic trials, you go for 4 days, you take 2-day break, you go for 4 more days, you got to get there a couple of days before your first race, which, in case of 5,000 meters, it's the first day, so you got to get there. And then after you're done with the last one, you stay there for another day. It's 2 weeks. Kip was in Eugene for 2 full weeks. And at that time of the year, only about 5+ weeks before the first race in the Olympic Games, and staying 2 weeks in a hotel and not being able to relax and train, I think was pretty costly. And on top of that, and here's another probably a little bit more direct impact, is all this hype. Eugene did such a great job, I think better than the other Olympic trials I've seen, from at least the ones that I've been to, from 96, 2000, 2004. The kind of hype, not that Kip was really being so faced by stuff like that. I think he's experienced that. But you know what? He still got it. Again, over there 2 weeks, you constantly give interviews, people want to see you. And what's really more, I think, directly impacting this situation was after the race, the media thinks are so long. Again, things are so organized and so important. And of course, he was happy to do those things. But you know what? It's almost literally easily 1.5 hours, 2 hours after the race. You just can't leave there, okay? So what that has done to him, he couldn't cool down really properly. He could not go to get his full ice bath. Why? Because many of the races are so late, and you get a couple of weeks, you get a wife, you get a young kid, all waiting outside. And also in Eugene, if you remember the place we stayed, after 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, the place they can find a place, to get a good dinner was so limited. Okay? So he did not want to have the wife and the kid not having a place to eat. So what he did, not cool down really properly. Especially toward the end, after the 15 final, that was a long time. So you know what?